Alright, what is going on, guys? So, I need to start this video off with two things. One, completely unrelated to anything, the D key on my keyboard is messed up, and it's making me sad. Yeah, that's not relevant to anything I'm going to say, I just wanted to point that out because it's been annoying me, and I was like spam pressing it, it's just not fixing. But anyways, that's beside the point. Secondly, oh wait, now I remember what I was gonna say. Secondly, I am looking for a YouTube editor. If you like want to do it, basically, I will say this: I'm pretty much. I say editor. Really, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for someone to basically like do my YouTube for me. Obviously, there's pay behind that, but I want to do YouTube, but I'm too lazy to actually do it myself when it comes to editing videos, finding the stuff for the videos, making thumbnails, making titles. Basically everything that involves doing a YouTube. I'm too lazy to do all that. So if somebody wants to do that for me, I'll pay. But yeah, if you're interested in that, just message me on Discord. If you don't know where my Discord is, you can just go to it should be linked below one of my videos. Should be this one. It'll probably be linked below this one, and if not, just go to my Twitch, type !_ Discord, and there should be a link there. And with that being said, let's get into the actual content of the video. 1 second. Gavin just messaged me. Alright. Okay, now like I said, let's get into the actual content of this video, because, least scuff tot for their video. So, next wipe, what are we looking forward to, right? Well, at face value, we don't know. We know, some of the things that are coming. However, we also don't know exactly what they're going to be. If you don't know what I'm talking about, literally, so this is funny, by the way, on Twitter, not in their Discord, not in-game, nothing else, on Twitter, Iron Mace tweeted out, in case you haven't heard, Dark and Darker will officially be receiving a PVE mode with the launch of Next Wipe, April 10th. Stay tuned as we will share more details soon. So, Next Wipe, April 10th, I mean, that was already something that we knew about, but this is a big drop here. PVE mode is coming next wipe, and just on top of that, one more thing. I think this is in a DM with OnePeg. SDF said this. I'm pretty sure OnePeg put out a video talking about this, but SDF said, unfortunately, next wipe has no water map and gathering hall. It is for next wipe, so the one after this upcoming one. So it's just, I think of it as about half a year away, roughly. So I will talk about that in a minute because that's not as much to open up here, but this PvE mode, this is the big thing. So the next wipe, if you're a PvP player, obviously there's not a lot to look forward to. No new classes, no new maps, nothing, but probably some balance changes, but that's neither here nor there. But PvE mode, this is going to be the big focus of next wipe. And I will say this, I am a PvP player. PvP is the reason I play Dark and Darker. Without it, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say I probably wouldn't play it at all. With that being said, I think a PvE mode is arguably one of the best things they could do for the game's health and the longevity of the game. Why do I say that? Well, the casual players. The casual player base is the majority of your player base. Always is. Every game, even the most popular games to the least popular, not the least popular games. I guess the least popular games are not the casual player base because no one plays them. But the most popular games, 90% of your player base is what you would consider the casual part, right? That's just how it works. Your game is not, surviving off of the tryhards that are putting in, 40 hours a week on your game. That's just not it, because that's such a small minority. Usually probably, I'd say less than 10% of people, if, not even a much smaller number, less sub 5%. But, 80, 90% of your player base is going to be those people that are playing, maybe a couple hours a week tops. They just hop on here and there. And Dark and Darker, one of the main issues with it that has, it's been showcased many, many times, is it's a very hard game to get into. For one, if you've played the game for a long time, PvE isn't difficult to you. Nothing in the game is difficult to you outside of PvP. But for a new player, and I'm sure you guys remember this when you were starting, PvE is really, really hard. It's not an exaggeration to say, most people will die in their first room clearing mobs, for their first several runs. Literally just making it out of your spawn room can be challenging as a new player if you certain mobs. And I learned this game back when it was way more simple. And, you didn't have axe skeletons and Zweihander skeletons. And I don't think they were crossbowmen and crossbowmen. And all of those things are just an extra level of difficulty added to the game. Back then, it was just you had your sword skeletons. And they just did, one simple attack. It was easy. Now, that's not the case. Especially if you run into an elite or a nightmare skeleton. Nightmares especially, you don't really run into them that much in norms unless you go hell, which most people aren't making it to. So if you are, you're probably not the person I'm talking about right now. But just axe skeletons and Zweihander skeletons and stuff like that, it is very, very easy to die to those. And then on top of that, on top of the already difficult PvE that you're attempting to learn, you have PvP. And yes, you have like the gear score brackets like 0 to 24. However, I'm sure many of you know there are people out there with literally 1,000, 2,000 hours that only play 0 to 24 gear score. I think SDF himself even said it in one of their updates. 50% of the player base for this game is in that 0 to 24 gear score bracket. And not all of those are new players. A lot of them are people that have played a lot, just because the reason they don't go higher gear score is because they're gonna die to people up there, and that's so they don't. They just sit down there in the 24 gear score bracket. And while they may not be what you would consider good, they are better than the people that are brand new to the game learning. And yes, I know there's like some rookie bracket or whatever, but regardless of how that works, it's just overall, pretty bad for the game. The reason a lot of casual players quit is because they died trying to like learn PVE or dying to PvP and stuff like that. It's just overall like, a very hardcore game to get into. PvE mode, however, just brings a lot of casual players in. I've heard many, many times of people that just want a PvE mode for this game. They're like, yeah, if there's just a PvE mode, I would play it. And let me just like say this, like, any players that are brought in from the PvE mode probably won't like matter. Like if you're like a high roller player, right? This is like me saying it's bringing in players isn't relevant to you. You're probably never going to see most of these players because they're always going to be in PvE mode. I'm just talking about for the overall health of the game and the longevity of the game. Because like just having more players, whether they're in HR trios or solos or duos or whatever, is just a good thing. And I think the big thing here, though, like I said, that we don't know is how are they going to do this PvE mode? I have a couple ideas, none of which I'm particularly like, thrilled about. One of them being it's just the normal dungeon, you just queue up, there's a bunch of other players in it, and there's just no player damage, right? Like, it's like how the lobby used to be. You could see a bunch of people, and you could hit them, but you wouldn't do any damage to them. That is, I think, one of the first ideas I had for it, and obviously, while this is a very simplistic idea, and I think, truthfully, this is probably the most likely thing that they will do, I don't really know if it's good, because then, you're just going to have a bunch of people, like, let's for what, people are still going to try to grief you, right? Like, that's just going to happen. And then, like, having players in the lobby that you can't do anything with, like, you can't interact with in any way, just would feel weird. Like, so imagine if I'm looking at you, and you're looking at me, and I just walk up, and I stand in a doorway, right? Like, you can't do anything to me from that point on. I could stand there, and you can't get past me, because you can't kill me, you can't move me, whatever. Like, I'm just going to stand there, and I'm going to grief you. And people are going to do that. I can already think of, people running around with pavises, just, like, body blocking you with pavise, or trying to, like, rogues mob dump you to kill you, stuff like that, that level of stuff. So then, the other possible option is you have dungeons where it's only you in it. And while I think that's probably a bit better than just having other players with no PvP enabled, then the problem is you are having an entire instance of a dungeon for one person, or two people, or three people, depending on solo duo or trio. And that just doesn't really make sense to me, right? Because then that's like an entire like extra level of servers. Because instead of having one server that holds 15 people, you have to then have 15 different servers that hold one person, or and stuff like that, which just obviously like not 15 different servers, but like 15 different instances of lobbies which is hosted on the servers, and that just for like obvious reasons wouldn't work, because then you're just gonna have to like have a million different servers for everybody to be on, because there's gonna be a million different instances if you have like everybody in their own individual lobby for the PvE mode. Which brings me to the third option, is that they develop something entirely new for the PvE mode. It's been a long time since I've mentioned this, but when Wyvern came out, this was something I talked about, was like, imagine for the PvE mode, instead of it being like a full dungeon, you queue into like an instance, like you queue into like basically an arena style module, and then you just do the PvE in there. So like you queue up, you walk out, boom, you have Wyvern right there, right? Like and you just do the Wyvern. And then after you kill the Wyvern, like each person gets their own individual loot. I think that would be really, really fun. You could do that with all the bosses. You could do Lich, Wyvern, Banshee, Spectral Knight, Warlord. Am I forgetting anything? Troll, Cyclops. I think that's all. But yeah, like you could do that. And while I do think that'd be really fun for the bosses, obviously for obvious reasons, there's like a lot of other things, because like just normal PvE, like I mentioned earlier, would have to also be doable. So maybe you queue up and you get like a 2 or 3 module instance, right? Like you queue up, there's like 2 or 3 modules, and there's a boss. And then at the end of the modules, you do the boss, right? Almost like imagine almost like a roguelike, really. Like let's say you start off, you have like, base kit, you clear 2 or 3 rooms, you loot everything up, and then you do the boss at the end, and anything you find in there, you come out with, and you keep it. Like, I think that could be pretty cool. And then you could do, obviously, like, harder versions of this. But like I said, once again, this is all just speculation. I don't really know. Like I said, I'm kind of expecting them just to go with the first one I said, where it's a bunch of people in a lobby with no PvP enabled, and I really hope they don't. I don't think that's going to be good. And I will say this, we have been in a 4-month-long wipe. We have gotten, I think, no content. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but we got what, we got a couple more like sorcerer spells and perks, and I don't really know if we've gotten anything other than that. So I'm hoping this is something that's been in production for quite a while, and it's actually very fleshed out and is good and actually draws people to the game. I'm kind of worried it won't be, but I'm hoping it is. And if it is, then I think this could be a very, very good draw for the game. It could bring in a lot of players, which is something Dark and Darker desperately needs. Not just for, like, you know, the logic of, oh, my lobbies are empty, there's no one to fight, just for the game's overall health, like I mentioned earlier. But with that being said, like, you know, we could sit here and we could theorycraft what this is going to be for hours and hours and hours and never, like, get the nail on the head. But I do think it's kind of, like, interesting to think about just to see, like, what it's going to be. And I will say, like, I'm kind of excited for it. Like, I'm not saying I'll necessarily play it a ton, but I'm sure if it's fun, I'll try it out. I don't think Dark and Darker PvE is the most exciting thing, but you never know. It could be definitely interesting if it's a new experience. And then one more thing that I want to mention about PvE mode is it's how the gear is going to work, in the sense of, do you keep the gear you bring, like, you know, any gear you get in PvE mode, or, okay, sorry, is PvE mode and the PvP going to be separate entire things, right? So, like, can I get gear in PvE and then take it and go in PvP? Can I get gear in PvE? Can I sell it on the market? That type of stuff, you know, and that same logic of quest items or whatever else. Because if so, I like, on one hand, it's going to be good, I think, because then, like, you know, you have a place where you could just go safely PvE, PvP, or PvE, resource farm, stuff like that, and then not have to worry about dying, and, like, you know, for, like, the, like I don't want to say lower tier players because it sounds bad, but for the less experienced players, it's a lot safer, and it's a lot more consistent way to get good gear for things like arena and stuff. However, on the other hand, then you pretty much make it, especially if, you know, you have HR level loot in any capacity, then you have it where it's like, okay, this is the easiest way to get gear, and it's the safest way to get gear because you risk literally nothing because you can't die to players, right? And then I can just take this gear into the PvP mode. And, I mean, it would pretty much just make PvP looting irrelevant, like, you know, in the normal game mode. It would make, like, why would I go to the PvP mode loot when I could just go to PvE and do it, and no one can contest me? And then on the same hand, if you do have the issue of having a bunch of players in a lobby, what's going to end up happening is you're just going to see the resources getting farmed instantly. Like, you're going to queue up, especially if it's, you know, you keep the continuous system, you're going to queue up, every boss is going to be dead, every ore is going to be looted, you know, big chests are going to be looted, everything, and you're just going to be there in, like, a barren map because everybody's already stripped it, right? And I think that, I mean, for obvious reasons, wouldn't feel very good. But I am kind of excited to see how this comes out. I do hope it's good. I want to say I'm hopeful. I'm really not, because Iron Mace has let us down many, many times. But hey, maybe they will surprise us. Then onto this. So, I mean, there's obviously not a lot to talk about here. You know, no water map in Gathering Hall. Like I said, I really, really hope this just means they focused very, very heavily on this PvE mode, and it is going to be very good. I mean, there could be other things we could get. Obviously, like, you know, these are very large pieces of content, an entire new map. You know, the Gathering Hall, which is just like a player lobby where you can go and, like, see your friends. Excuse me. But outside of that, you know, we could get, like, new weapons, new items, stuff like that. A lot of the new items that were data mined, along with the water map, like the new throwables, which are, like, you know, you have blinds and slows and all that stuff. Like, that could definitely come out next wipe. And I do hope they release some form of content for, like, you know, their main player base. I hope next wipe isn't just, okay, here's PvE mode. That's it. Like, that's what we released. Because, yeah, that's going to be really good for the people that want to play PvE mode, but for everybody else, it's going to leave a very, very bad taste in your mouth, right? Because you just played a 4-month-long wipe, which we never should have, by the way. They said last time that we would never have another 4-month wipe again, so we're already a month over what the wipe's supposed to be. And you're going to release the next wipe, and you're not going to give us anything? I mean, you know, that's not exactly going to feel very good. I definitely would not be happy with that, and I'm kind of worried that's what they're going to do, and it's kind of what I expect them to do. But with that being said, I appreciate, or hope you guys enjoyed the video, and appreciate you for watching this far if you already have. But feel free to leave your thoughts and opinions down below. PvE mode, next wipe, what do you want? What do you hope PvE is like? You know, do you hope they make it so you can get loot and take it into the PvP? Do you hope they can't? Or, you know, just pretty much anything, like, your thoughts about it and everything. But with that being said, appreciate you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys later. Peace, peace.